It's been over 3 years since I played Shadow of the Colossus for the first, and so far only time in my life. Yet I consistently get the urge to replay it probably once every 3 months. Something about the world, its scale, the loneliness of its open spaces mixed with an underlying sense of peace and tranquility, almost as if it offered a glimpse into a world where human life was never there to interfere with nature's true potential. Of course, what Shadow of the Colossus is most known for are the incredible battles between the player character and the 16 titular colossi that inhabit the land. The spectacle of these fights are still unmatched for me, offering some of the most jaw-dropping moments both in terms of visuals and game design. Bearing in mind I was playing the PS4 version from 2018, so every now and then I'd find myself in disbelief that this same experience was possible 13 years prior. Team Ico was a Japanese game developer responsible for both Shadow of the Colossus and its 2001 predecessor, Ico, a game I have yet to play but it is on my radar. In 2007, 2 years after Shadow of the Colossus released, Team Ico began development on Project Trico, which would eventually become The Last Guardian, a game that focused around the relationship between a young boy and a griffin-like creature. Officially announced at E3 2009 and originally planned to release on the PS3, The Last Guardian endured a long and troubled development cycle, including the departure of the game's director Fumito Ueda, please don't kill me if I pronounced it wrong, and its subsequent move from Team Ico to Ueda's new studio, Gen Design. This in fact led to the complete closure of Team Ico, with most of its staff eventually finding jobs at Gen Design too. Eventually released in 2016, 9 years after development first began and 7 years since its initial announcement, The Last Guardian finally made its way to PS4. In many ways, The Last Guardian plays exactly how I expected it to. Awakening in a cave, lying next to a great beast with no context, very much evoked the feeling of setting out into the world of Shadow of the Colossus, only to be met with the sight of a hulking giant stomping through an empty valley. That sense of initial confusion with little but your own intuition on how to progress very much encapsulates the spirit of these titles. On the surface, both can appear like huge action-adventure games, but to me, when you boil it down, these are more like puzzle games. The Last Guardian sets out a very simple premise: reach the highest point of the tallest tower. Soon after freeing the beast and escaping from the cave, Trico, as he's later referred to, displays a great desire to get back there, though for what reason we do not know. Unfortunately, due to injuries sustained presumably from a previous battle, Trico is unable to use his wings to fly, and so both Trico and the player character must work together to slowly make their way through an intimidating labyrinth of ancient structures. Neither Trico or the player character have the ability to traverse this world alone, and so this is where The Last Guardian becomes more like a puzzle game, as each room, cavern or tower presents unique challenges that only one or the other can solve. As you can expect, the boy can access smaller areas via tunnels, thin ledges, or gaps between the large portcullis rungs, eventually finding levers or pulley systems to then open the doorway for Trico to then pass through. In contrast, Trico can leap great distances across 100-foot drops, lift the player high up to the ledges, and act as the boy's personal bodyguard. One of the most unexpected and most creative choices for this game is the approach to combat. Along their journey, the boy is continually attacked by these stone soldiers attempting to capture him, but being without a weapon for the majority of the game, it is down to Trico to protect the player in these tense moments. Now, one-on-one, Trico completely bodies no contest. But when the numbers are heavily stacked against the two main characters, the soldiers actually become quite challenging to overcome. Well, unless you're at the specific sections of the game where you gain access to this OP as fuck shield that allows Trico to shoot a freaking death beam from his tail. So yes, don't get me wrong, it is an action adventure in its own right, with plenty of exploration and thrilling set pieces sprinkled throughout. But moment to moment, The Last Guardian is a very slow-paced experience, and one thing that reflects this is the controls. Holy shit, these controls are bad. I don't think you can even use the excuse that it's an older game. 2016 is not that old that it can't adhere to the most universal of control schemes. Why is jump triangle in this game?
This is disgusting.
And why is X descend?
Now the main problem area is up here. All of this going on up here is what's causing me the most physical discomfort.
For comparison, another little action-adventure title came out in 2016 which features a lot of platforming. I'm not sure whether you've heard of it though, because it was quite under the radar. Uncharted 4. Guess what the jump button was for Uncharted 4? Yeah, X.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
I even checked to see if you can remap the buttons in a settings menu. You can't, by the way. And I just can't fathom why the default button layout is the way it is. I know it sounds like a nitpick, sure, but you'd be amazed how much muscle memory kicks in from always using the industry standard control schemes. So in heated moments, crouching when I meant to jump didn't exactly go down well. Oh my god, the camera as well. It just feels so sluggish and heavy when moving the right stick. There's no subtle micro adjustments that you can make here. You will need to push the joystick with decent force, and even then, there is a small input delay, so each time you move the camera, it almost feels like there's a conflicting force just initially preventing it from turning the way you want. This delay even feels present in the normal movement controls. I can't tell you how many times I pressed X to drop down to a ledge, but because I pressed it too late, the boy started doing his I almost walked off the ledge animation, and I'm just sat there like,
I'm not suggesting anymore. Jump.
Now, one possible explanation for this heavy feeling that I'm describing is to match the sense of weight that everything has in this game. Credit where credit is due, things in this world feel real. Trico doesn't always jump with the grace of a dainty butterfly. He lands on surfaces like you would expect an 18-ton lorry would. And even on a small scale, the boy trips and stumbles over uneven surfaces to make him feel more connected to the surroundings. And when riding on Trico's back, the boy will be thrown this way and that, clinging onto his feathers for dear life. It's small things like this which just ground the experience and ultimately strengthens the believability that these two unlikely souls would grow to form such a strong bond. For better or for worse, Trico acts like a wild animal would. This means that whilst he begins to show signs of understanding and obedience to your calls the further you progress into the game, he will still occasionally just do his own thing. Like, just think of any time you've ever tried to call over your dog or cat for a cuddle, and they just sit at the far end of the room staring at you like that Mike Wazowski meme. That being said, I think it just made him feel all the more real, and did well to make me forget that he's not just a 3D model on rails, always knowing the way forward. It's frustrating for sure. So many times he'd jump back down from the platform we just hopped up onto, or leave me swimming in open water whilst he went to shake off his feathers, just to then jump back in 5 minutes later. But if that's what needed to happen for me to feel the emotional beats into the later half of the game, then I'll take that in a heartbeat. Because every time we'd end up in a situation where Trico would be scrambling on the edge of a tall tower and I needed to find a way to help him up, or after a prolonged standoff with the stone soldiers and I'd need to remove broken spears from his hide, I would naturally find myself scrambling to get it done as quickly as possible in the fear that something bad would happen to Trico if I didn't.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half, but if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
The strongest weapon in The Last Guardian's arsenal is without a doubt the relationship between these two characters. Without it, the entire experience falls apart. I was continually drawn back to each play session on the premise that I wanted to see how their connection would deepen through each trial they'd face. But in addition, the general sense of mystery within the world meant that I was naturally hungry to find answers elsewhere. What exactly is Trico? Who am I? Why do these stone soldiers hunt me specifically? Why are there no other humans to be found? The answers aren't given immediately after each new question arises, so the desire to find out only fuels the need to play on. The only essence of storytelling outside of the visuals is the occasional voiceover, presented as past memories recounted by a future version of the boy character. I'm still not sure if I like the whole approach of having the main character narrate the game as past events. As you could probably guess, it essentially moves any tension regarding the boy's safety throughout the whole story. It is cool, sure, to hear how the boy perceived certain events in those moments, but I'd argue whether it was necessary at all. From a gameplay perspective, the narration will also be used by the game as a form of providing hints to the player if they found themselves stuck during a certain puzzle. That's great and all, but I really wish it was tied to a certain button, or that I had the option to turn that element off entirely, because I can recall a few times where the game essentially just told me the solution to the current puzzle when I would have just needed maybe 30 seconds or more to just piece it together myself. It's not a game breaker, but it just lessens the satisfaction of figuring it out myself. And sometimes I found it frustratingly inconsistent, because when I actually needed help, I'd seemingly get no narration, and so have to pause the game and look up a walkthrough guide online. So yes, hints are great for those who require that extra bit of help, but I just wish it was in the player's hands when that would happen. Do you know another thing I wish I had control over? A friggin' photo mode. Why is this the prettiest game I've never been able to take cool screenshots of? For a 2016 game, The Last Guardian still looks damn good, and because of the grandiose scale of both Trico and the environment, the lost potential for some sick desktop wallpapers is crushing. Do you know how many times Trico will be perched on a tower bathed in the warm glow of the afternoon sun, and I just wanted to stand there like...
You're so raw, so wonderfully visible, so beautiful.
This is weird, Kieran. I don't think we should...
Not doing this would be weird.
The Last Guardian is by no means perfect. At times, it's an incredibly slow, sluggish, and frustrating game to play, and I think it could easily turn off a lot of people within its first hour. For those hoping that within 20 minutes they'd be wielding a mighty flaming blade, riding an armoured Trico into battle against a horde of enemies, this certainly isn't the experience for you. But anyone looking for a 10 to 20 hour story that they can break down over a week or so, playing just a couple of hours here and there, then I could easily recommend this to try, especially if you're already subscribed to PS Plus on PS5 because it's free. The Last Guardian presents a beautiful world, an intriguing mystery to solve, and above all else, a genuinely moving bond between two characters, which by the time the credits roll, will most certainly be the cause of a few watery eyes depending on who's holding the controller. I now await with bated breath for whatever gen design is cooking up next. I just hope I don't have to wait too long. Hey guys, as always, thank you for watching the video. If you liked what you saw, please consider giving the video a like, and if you're new to the channel, then why not even consider hitting the big subscribe button down below. Until next time guys, thanks always, see ya.